Marcus, we need to talk about your appearance. Coach Patterson stood at the door of the boys' locker room, his arms crossed. The rest of the Jefferson High School basketball team was already on the court for warm-ups. Marcus Johnson could hear the squeak of sneakers, the rhythm of dribbling, the echo of the packed gymnasium. It was the regional championship game. Scouts from 3 colleges were in the stands. This was the game that could change Marcus's life. "What about my appearance, Coach?" Marcus asked, already knowing where this was going. "Your beard. You know the grooming policy. Clean shaven for games, no exceptions." Marcus touched his beard. Short, neatly trimmed, about a 1/4 inch long. He'd been growing it for 6 months, since he turned 17 and his parents had given him permission to start following the Islamic practice. "Coach, this is religious. We talked about this last month. You said it was fine." That was before the state athletic director sent out the memo. New enforcement of existing rules. Beards are prohibited. Safety and uniformity standards. Have you ever been told to choose between your faith and your dream? Marcus Johnson was 17 years old, a senior at Jefferson High in Detroit, Michigan. He was born Muslim. His parents had converted before he was born. He'd grown up going to the mosque, fasting during Ramadan, praying 5 times daily. But he'd never worn a beard until this year. In Islam, growing a beard is encouraged for men after puberty, but it's not required. For Marcus, it was a personal choice, a way to publicly express his faith as he became an adult. It was also a way to honor his father, who'd worn a beard Marcus's whole life. "Coach, the beard doesn't affect my playing. I've had it for 6 months. We've won 23 games. I'm averaging 27 points per game. What's the actual problem?" Coach Patterson's expression hardened. "The actual problem is that you're not following team rules. Basketball is a team sport. That means everyone follows the same standards. But the rule says clean-shaven or neatly trimmed facial hair. My beard is neatly trimmed." The state athletic director interprets that as no beards longer than stubble. Yours is too long. Marcus felt anger rising. "So I can have stubble, but not a beard? How does that make sense?" "It makes sense because those are the rules. Now shave or you don't play tonight." Behind Coach Patterson, Marcus could see his teammates looking through the locker room door. His best friend Jamal mouthed the words, "Don't do it." Marcus took a deep breath. This was the regional championship. College scouts were in the stands. This was the game that could change Marcus's life. But his faith was in the mirror staring back at him. "I'm not shaving, Coach." "Then you're benched. Get dressed and sit on the bench. Maybe you'll learn what being part of a team really means." Coach Patterson walked away. Marcus stood alone in the locker room, his uniform still in his locker, his beard still on his face, his future suddenly uncertain. But what happened in the next 48 hours would change more than just Marcus's season. Marcus sat on the bench in street clothes, jeans and a Jefferson High hoodie. The rest of the team wore their uniforms, the home white jerseys that Marcus should have been wearing. The gymnasium was packed. 2,847 people. Students, parents, local media, college scouts. The regional championship was the biggest game of the year. Marcus's parents sat in the stands, his mother wearing hijab, his father wearing a beard much longer than Marcus's. They'd driven 2 hours to watch their son play. Now they watched him sit. And the game started without Marcus. Jefferson's starting lineup was missing its leading scorer, its team captain, its best player. Within 5 minutes, Jefferson was down 12-3. The crowd started chanting, "We want Marcus! We want Marcus!" Coach Patterson ignored them. He rotated through the bench, trying different lineups, but nothing worked. Without Marcus, Jefferson's offense fell apart. By halftime, Jefferson was losing 38-19. In the stands, Marcus's teammate Jamal's older sister Destiny pulled out her phone. She was a senior at University of Michigan, home for the weekend. She'd watched Marcus play since middle school. She opened Twitter and started typing.
Marcus Johnson, Jefferson High's leading scorer is benched tonight, not for bad grades, not for breaking rules, for having a beard, a religious beard. This is discrimination. This is wrong. Hashtag let Marcus play. She attached a photo, Marcus in street clothes on the bench, while his team struggled without him. The tweet started slowly, 47 retweets in the first 10 minutes. Then it caught fire. A local sports reporter saw it and shared it. A civil rights activist saw it and shared it. A Muslim advocacy group saw it and shared it. By the end of the third quarter, hashtag let Marcus play was trending in Detroit. By the end of the game, which Jefferson lost 71-52, their worst loss of the season, it was trending nationally. Marcus sat on the bench the entire game, never played a single minute, watched his team lose the regional championship, watched 3 college scouts leave early, watched his senior season potentially end, all because of a beard that was a quarter-inch long. By Saturday morning, Marcus's story was everywhere. Local news: star athlete benched over religious beard. ESPN: high school basketball player sits out championship over grooming policy. Twitter: 2.3 million impressions on hashtag let Marcus play. TikTok: students filming beard or basketball solidarity videos. The Michigan chapter of CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, issued a statement. Marcus Johnson's benching is religious discrimination. The Michigan High School Athletic Association's grooming policy, as applied, violates his First Amendment rights and Michigan's religious freedom protections. We called for his immediate reinstatement and policy reform. The ACLU of Michigan followed. Public school athletic policies cannot force students to choose between sports participation and religious expression. Marcus Johnson's beard is protected religious practice. The MHSAA must revise discriminatory policies immediately. But the pushback was also fierce. Supporters of Coach Patterson: rules are rules. If he won't follow grooming standards, he shouldn't play. This isn't about religion, it's about discipline. Other players follow the rules. Why is he special? Sports commentary: basketball is a team sport. Individual religious expression can't override team unity. If we make exceptions for him, where does it stop? The debate divided Jefferson High. Some students supported Marcus. Others supported Coach Patterson. Some argued it was religious freedom. Others argued it was about athletic integrity. But the most powerful voices were the students. Monday morning, Marcus walked into Jefferson High expecting a normal day. What he found was extraordinary. 127 students, nearly a quarter of the school, stood outside the main entrance. They weren't protesting against the school, they were protesting for Marcus. And they all wore fake beards. Construction paper beards, marker-drawn beards, printed photo beards, even some real beards from seniors who could grow them. The message was clear. If Marcus couldn't play with a beard, they'd all wear beards. Jamal organized the protest. This isn't just about basketball, he told the crowd of students and local news cameras. This is about whether Muslim students have the same rights as everyone else. Marcus shouldn't have to choose between his faith and his sport. A white student named Emma spoke up. I'm Christian. I wear a cross necklace during volleyball games. Nobody tells me to take it off. Why is Marcus's religious expression different? A Jewish student named David added, my cousin wears a yarmulke during wrestling. Nobody benches him. This double standard is obvious. The student protest made national news. The optics were perfect. Diverse students defending a Muslim teammate's religious freedom, using humor, fake beards, to make a serious point. Principal Henderson tried to shut down the protest, but the students had done their homework. This was before school started, on public sidewalk. First Amendment protected their demonstration. By lunchtime, hashtag Beard for Marcus was trending. Students across Michigan posted photos wearing fake beards in solidarity. That afternoon, the MHSAA received 847 complaint emails. Their phone lines were jammed. Their social media was flooded. The pressure was mounting. Tuesday morning, care attorney Fatima Rahman met with Marcus and his parents.
We have a strong case, Fatima explained. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination in education. The Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act protects religious expression, and the First Amendment protects religious freedom in public schools. She opened her laptop. The MHSSA's grooming policy says clean-shaven or neatly trimmed facial hair. Your beard is neatly trimmed. Coach Patterson is applying a stricter interpretation to you than to other students. How do we prove that? Marcus's father asked. We already have proof. Fatima pulled up photos. 3 players on Jefferson's baseball team have beards longer than Marcus's. None of them were benched. 2 players on the football team had beards during season. No issues. She showed more photos. White players with stubble, black players with facial hair, all playing without problems. But Marcus, visibly Muslim, religiously motivated beard, gets benched. That's disparate treatment. That's discrimination. Marcus's mother asked the hard question. If we sue, will Marcus be able to play? We'll file for an emergency injunction. We'll ask the court to order his immediate reinstatement while the case proceeds. Given the evidence, I think we have a strong chance. Marcus spoke quietly. What if I lose? What if the court says they can bench me? Then we appeal, Fatima said firmly. And we change the law so this never happens to another Muslim athlete. Either way, Marcus, you're making history. Wednesday afternoon, federal court, Eastern District of Michigan, emergency hearing on Marcus Johnson's request for preliminary injunction. The courtroom was packed with students, parents, media, and civil rights observers. Judge Patricia Morrison reviewed the case file. Mr. Rahman, your client is asking this court to override a high school athletic policy. That's a significant request. Make your case. Fatima stood. Your Honor, this isn't about overriding athletic policy. It's about enforcing constitutional rights. Marcus Johnson's beard is religious expression protected by the First Amendment. The school's grooming policy as applied to him is discriminatory. She presented evidence. Photos of other Jefferson athletes with longer facial hair who played without issue. The MHSSA policy language, neatly trimmed facial hair is allowed. Expert testimony that Marcus's beard meets any reasonable definition of neatly trimmed. Documentation that Coach Patterson never enforced strict beard standards until Marcus grew his religious beard. Your Honor, the message is clear. Religious beards are treated differently than non-religious facial hair. That's discrimination. The school district's attorney argued back. Your Honor, this is about team standards and athletic safety. Grooming policies are within the school's discretion. Marcus Johnson can practice his religion, just not while playing basketball. Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow. Counsel, are you arguing that public schools can ban religious expression during athletic participation? We're arguing that reasonable grooming standards. Does Marcus Johnson's quarter-inch beard pose any safety risk? Well, not specifically, but does it violate the written policy's allowance for neatly trimmed facial hair? The attorney hesitated. The policy leaves interpretation to coaches. So Coach Patterson can interpret neatly trimmed to exclude religious beards but include non-religious stubble? That's not what's happening here. That's exactly what the evidence shows. Judge Morrison looked at the photos. I see 3 baseball players with longer beards, none benched. I see 2 football players with facial hair, none benched. But Marcus Johnson, with a religiously motivated, neatly trimmed beard, gets benched during the championship game. That's disparate treatment. That's discrimination. The preliminary injunction is granted.
Marcus Johnson is immediately reinstated to the basketball team. He may maintain his beard as currently worn. Coach Patterson and the MHSSA are ordered to not retaliate or further discriminate. Furthermore, the MHSSA is ordered to revise its grooming policies within 30 days to explicitly protect religious expression. The court will retain jurisdiction. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Morrison gavelled for order, but she was smiling. Marcus hugged his parents, tears streaming down his face, not from sadness, from relief, from vindication, from knowing he didn't have to choose anymore. Friday night, 2 days after the court ruling, Jefferson High had advanced to the state semifinals. Despite the earlier loss, they qualified on overall record. Marcus walked into the locker room for the first time in a week. His teammates erupted in cheers.
"Captain's back," Jamal shouted, throwing Marcus's jersey. Coach Patterson stood in the corner, his expression unreadable. The court had ordered Marcus's reinstatement, but Patterson still had to coach him. "Johnson," Patterson said quietly, "suit up." Marcus expected hostility. What he got was something else. "I was wrong," Patterson said, loud enough for the team to hear. "I enforced a rule unfairly. I let my own discomfort with religious expression cloud my judgment. That's not what coaching is about." He looked Marcus in the eye. "You're our captain for a reason, not despite your faith, because of your leadership. I'm sorry it took a federal judge to make me see that." The locker room was silent. Marcus extended his hand. "Thank you, Coach." They shook hands. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The game that night was electric. Marcus scored 34 points. Jefferson won 78-71. After the final buzzer, Marcus's teammates carried him off the court. But the most powerful moment came during warm-ups. 17 players from the opposing team, Lansing Central, ran out wearing headbands with #BeardForMarcus written on them. "We're Muslim too," one player told Marcus during handshakes. "What you did, standing up, fighting back, you made it easier for all of us." Marcus hadn't just won his own fight, he'd changed the game for everyone. 30 days later, the MHSSAA released revised grooming policies. New language. Athletic grooming policies must accommodate religious expression, including, but not limited to, hijabs, turbans, yarmulkes, crosses, and beards worn for religious reasons. Schools may not require students to choose between athletic participation and religious practice. Violations will result in immediate sanctions against schools and coaches. It included specific protections. Religious beards explicitly protected, length determined by student or family. Religious head coverings protected, hijabs, turbans, yarmulkes, etc. Religious jewelry protected, crosses, hijab pins, etc. Mandatory training for coaches on religious accommodation. Clear complaint process for students facing discrimination. It was the most comprehensive religious protection policy in high school sports nationwide. Other states began adopting similar language. California revised its policies within 2 months. Texas followed. New York, Illinois. Marcus Johnson's lawsuit had created a domino effect of reform. Marcus stood at a press conference in Jefferson High's gymnasium, surrounded by his teammates, his family, and reporters. He wore a University of Michigan basketball jersey. He'd accepted a full scholarship. "I want to thank everyone who supported me," Marcus said, his beard now a full half-inch, still neatly trimmed. "My family, my teammates, my school, my community, and especially the students who wore fake beards to support me." The crowd laughed and applauded. This was never just about me playing basketball. It was about whether Muslim athletes have the same rights as everyone else, whether we can be ourselves and still belong. He touched his beard. "This isn't just hair. It's my identity. It's my faith. It's my connection to my father, to my religion, to who I am as a young man. I'm grateful I didn't have to choose. No student should have to choose between their faith and their sport. And now, because of what happened here, maybe they won't have to. The University of Michigan coach spoke next. Marcus is joining a program that values diversity and religious freedom. He'll never have to hide who he is. Not here, not ever. Marcus Johnson, now 21, was a sophomore at University of Michigan, starting guard, averaging 18 points per game. His beard had grown longer, about 2 inches now, still neatly shaped. He'd become a voice for Muslim athletes nationwide. He spoke at high schools, he mentored younger players facing similar discrimination, he worked with CARE on athletic policy reform. But his favorite moment came at a youth basketball camp he ran in Detroit. A 14-year-old Muslim boy approached nervously. "Marcus, I want to try out for my high school team next year, but I want to start wearing a beard. My coach said no beards allowed. What should I do?" Marcus smiled. "What's your coach's name?" "Coach Williams. He's not mean or anything. He just says it's the rules."
Tell Coach Williams that as of 2 years ago, Michigan law protects religious beards in high school sports. Tell him Marcus Johnson said so. And if he still has a problem, give him my number. The kid's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? You shouldn't have to fight this battle alone. I already fought it. You get to benefit." That's when Marcus realized the full weight of what he'd done. He hadn't just won his own case, he'd paved the way for every Muslim athlete who came after. 5 years after Marcus's benching, the landscape of high school sports had transformed. Changes implemented nationwide. 37 states adopted religious accommodation policies for athletes. Federal guidance issued on religious expression in school sports. Coach training programs included religious sensitivity modules. The Marcus Johnson rule became shorthand for religious protection in athletics. But the cultural shift was even more significant. Muslim athletes played openly across the country. Beards weren't controversial. Hijabs in sports became normal. The next generation didn't have to fight the battles Marcus had fought. A documentary about Marcus's case, Benched, won an Emmy for Best Sports Documentary. It was required viewing in coaching training programs nationwide. Marcus, now playing professionally in Europe, returned to Jefferson High for the documentary premiere. Coach Patterson was there. 5 years had changed him. He'd become an advocate for religious accommodation in sports. He gave talks at coaching conferences about his mistakes and his learning. "Marcus taught me something I should have known. Faith doesn't weaken athletes, it strengthens them. Accommodating religious expression doesn't divide teams, it unifies them around shared values, respect, dignity, inclusion." Marcus and Patterson shook hands in front of the cameras. This time, it was genuine forgiveness. "You grew, Marcus," he told him. "That's all anyone can ask." Marcus Johnson's case became a landmark in religious freedom law. Legal impact. Cited in 23 federal court cases about religious expression. Used in Department of Education guidance. Taught in constitutional law courses. Created precedent for Title VI religious discrimination claims. Athletic impact. MHSAA policy became national model. NCAA adopted similar protections for college athletes. Professional leagues, NBA, NFL, MLS, clarified religious accommodation policies. International sports federations revised rules.
Cultural impact. Muslim athletes felt empowered to express faith openly. Coaches received better training on religious diversity. Schools proactively revised policies to avoid discrimination. Students learned that religious freedom wasn't optional. But Marcus's favorite impact was personal. 300 Muslim athletes reached out over the years to thank him for making their path easier. "You showed us we belong," one wrote, "not despite our faith, but because of it." Marcus Johnson's story wasn't about one athlete keeping his beard. It was about whether Muslim young people could participate fully in American life, sports, school, community, without hiding who they were. For too long, Muslim athletes faced an impossible choice: assimilate or sit out, shave or stay home, hide or be benched. Marcus chose a third option: fight back. He didn't fight with anger. He fought with documentation, legal action, community support, and the courage to stand firm when it would have been easier to compromise. His 127 classmates wearing fake beards showed him he wasn't alone. His legal team showed him he had rights. His teammates showed him that solidarity transcends faith. His opponents, wearing #BeardForMarcus headbands, showed him his fight mattered beyond Jefferson High School. 17 years old, benched during the championship, faced a choice between his faith and his future. Chose both, won both, changed the game for everyone. That's how one Muslim teenager with a quarter-inch beard transformed American high school sports. Are you a young Muslim athlete facing discrimination? Have you been told to choose between faith and sports? Marcus's lesson: document everything. Know your rights. Find allies. Fight back legally. You don't have to choose. Religious freedom in sports isn't optional. It's the law. And if anyone tells you different, tell them about Marcus Johnson.